What's up, guys? Welcome into the Breneman Show. I am Adam Breneman. I am fired up for today's episode. This episode is dope, and it's with one of the fastest rising college football coaches in the country, Texas football wide receiver coach Brennan Marion. Brennan is a buddy of mine and one of the hottest young coaches in the country, and is going to be a head coach pretty soon in college football. So I'm excited to bring him to you to talk to him. We break down his career, Texas football, everything, man, everything. If you're a college football fan, you're going to want to hear this episode.
All right, guys, before we get to this episode, I want to announce something I'm super fired up about. I'm officially partnering with Pickett for this football season. Pickett is the best in class sports betting tracker and social media. I'm going to be tracking all my plays on the app, answering questions you have about college football betting. If you aren't already on the app, sign up and use my code ADAM, ADAM, and you'll get $3 or $100 free. It's a free app. You download the app and use my code, they'll literally give you $3 or $100. I think it's 99 out of 100 people get $3, 1 out of 100 get $100, and that's just free money to use betting however you want. So download the Pickett app. Links in my bio. Depends where you're listening to this. If it's either in my bio or in the description, or just go to the Pickett app on the App Store, download it, use my code Adam. But appreciate Pickett. Make sure you guys show them support. It's a great app. I love using it, and I'll be having all my content on there, and you get some free money. And this episode is also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Love Underdog Fantasy. You guys know how I feel about that app. It's the best app, the best daily fantasy app. You can play fantasy. You can do pick 'em. They had a great line this past weekend on Underdog. It was Marquise Brown over under 0.5 yards. It was free money. So love Underdog. Use my code AdamB to get your first time deposit doubled up to $100. And you can track I'll be posting all my plays on that, on Underdog on the Pickett app. And then also I'll be using that app to do pick 'em all throughout the year. So I'll be tweeting and posting what my plays are on there. But Underdog Fantasy is another great sponsor and supporter of this podcast and all my content. So make sure to download their app. Link in my bio, link in the description, or just download the Underdog app in the App Store and use my code AdamB to get your first time deposit doubled. Show them support because they're supporting me.
And now here we go. My conversation, my interview with Texas football wide receiver coach and pass game coordinator Brennan Marion.
The number one, tight end in the country.
Adam Breneman, tight end, Cedar Cliff.
And then popped up.
Touchdown! Adam Breneman, a 14-yard strike.
I'm honored to have one of the top rising stars in coaching, Brennan Marion, on with me today. And Coach, I guess I should call you Coach, right? Coach, how's everything going this summer, man? Everything good?
Oh man, it's been a great summer. Just enjoying the kids and in Texas, loving life. So all is well. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I've been trying to get you on for a while, but glad to make it happen before the season starts. I saw you had a Twitter space the other day, man. That thing was popping. You had about 300 people in there at one point when I was listening to it.
Yeah, I was just bored one night, and everybody keeps asking me to go on that thing. I didn't know how to use it, so I was like, instead of joining somebody else's, I'll just jump on and see what happens. I looked up. I was like 20 minutes in. There's like 600-700 people, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, man. I was impressed, man. That thing. I think you had a lot of people in there, but you were spitting some knowledge, man. That was good stuff. A lot of people were asking you a lot of like technical ball questions, which was cool. I know people were trying to ask recruiting questions, but I thought you did a good job, man. I learned a lot just by listening to you about wide receiver play and things like that.
No doubt. Appreciate it, man. It was good. Yeah. It was a good little deal.
Yeah, man. How's the transition to Texas been? What's that? When you've been there now, what, 6 months, about 5 months?
Yeah, 6 months. I mean, it was definitely a great transition from the standpoint of, being with Coach Sark. He's just a football dude, relaxed. A lot of work, just flipping the receiver room. We brought in a lot of new faces. Yeah. And then obviously, recruiting our 23 class of guys, having to go get 3 to 4 high school guys, so it's been a lot of work, but been really fun.
Yeah. What's Coach Sark like? I know everyone always wonders. He's got such as, legendary status in the college football world. What's it like working for him?
Just really authentic. He's himself, same guy every day. True quarterback guy. You know, he played the position, coached the position for a long time. The thing I like about him is he doesn't micromanage. He kind of lets you, you know, do your deal, you know, gives you the opportunity to run your space as the head coach of your position. And, you know, that's been big.
Yeah, man. So you got to tell me some Mark Whipple stories, man. So you're as you know, I played for Mark Whipple at UMass for 2 years. He's been a big part of my life career for a while now, and I know you coach under him at Pitt. So you gotta tell me a couple of stories, man. He's got a great offense for receivers to play in, man, because he throws the ball every play. You don't care. It's 3rd and 1. He's slinging it down the field.
No, I mean, I love Coach Whip. I mean, you know, me and him, we're both competitive assholes, you know, like, you know, we days where we would clash, the next day we hug each other and be best friends and going back to it. You know, I thought Coach Whipple did a really good job at the University of Pitt last year, you know, with Kenny and, you know, with the receivers and me, and just putting it all together and putting us in a position to be successful. And like you said, I mean, I just loved his thought process from, we're going to chuck the ball no matter what. We dictate the terms. We don't care what the defense is doing. We're going to throw that ball. So, you know, I really like that. And, you know, just being around him really just, you know, taught me that, like, that mentality, you know, like that ego of when you believe in something and you know it'll work, to just stick with it, you know. And that's, you know, that's Coach Whip to a T. I mean, he's going to stick with what he does and he's going to do it at a high level.
No, man, I love Coach Whip. Playing in his offense as a tight end is fun. It was fun too, man, because he the one thing that he's so good at is like finding ways to get his playmakers the ball. Like that's the offense that I played in or been around, that like his main goal, like week to week, was like, how do we get this guy as many possible touches, you know? And I kind of you know learned from that as I was around. And speaking of that, like with Jordan Addison, like just coaching him last year, like that had to be such a cool experience. I mean, to have the Blickenoff winner and to have that guy in your room, must have been a cool experience.
Yeah, I mean, the receiver coach prior to me did a good job of bringing the talent in the room, and then obviously it was my job to kind of develop those guys, and grow them. I mean, Jordan ultimately just took off, you know, and like you said, in Whip's offense, you know, having, you know, your guy who got drafted to the Cardinals back in the day,
Isabella. Isabella. Yeah, he had like 200
you know,
catches.
Like, yeah, you know, he's going to make sure you feed that guy nonstop, you know. And so with Jordan, it was just preparing him for what was on his plate, you know, like, dude, you're about to have 100 catch season. Like, you need to catch 150 passes a day. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to know defenses. You need to know, you know, like, and he was able to take all that information that me and Whip gave him and process it and work on it every day. And then ultimately, you know, his talent came alive and all the God-given abilities that he had, and, you know, able to take off and be a great player.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he's going to have a big year in that Lincoln Riley system too. So that'll be fun to watch. The one thing that I think is always interesting, like the behind the scenes of a coach's perspective, like, I'm just curious too, like, what was your process like of going from Pitt to Texas, and like all that goes into, like, you know, moving across the country, and like the negotiations behind the scenes, and it's just the coaching carousel time so crazy, right? So for whatever you're willing to share, I think just a behind the scenes look at like what that process is like when you're trying to figure out like what school you're going to, you know, like what's that like as a young coach when you're trying to navigate the carousel?
Yeah, everybody thinks it's like this, like, you know, self-promoting, trying to find a job thing. And really, like, all the opportunities that have come to me throughout this coaching process has been through prior relationships, or, you know, you look up at the end of the season, you have a good season, and then people are like, man, we want to know what you did. Can you do that over here? You know, nothing has really been like, you know, you call and beg somebody for, like, that doesn't happen. You know, like, people have this like preconceived notion of like stuff like that happening, and it doesn't, you know. And so, you know, when Coach Sark reached out to me, I don't know Coach Sark at all. I've never even shook his hand before, you know, like I didn't know him at all. I knew a player on the team that I had recruited and knew his family really well, you know, Xavier Worthy. And he was like, Coach, our receiver spot, like, what are you going to do? You know, like, But that wasn't even my thought process. Really, in my mind, I thought that, I'd be at Pitt. I was told some things. Those things didn't go through. When Coach Whip left, I thought I would move up into that role.
So did I, man. I thought you were going to be the OC. What happened?
I don't know. Not good enough, not old enough. I don't know how that whole deal works. But, got some other, the thing that I really loved about Coach Sark, though, that I can share with the process, when the whole process was going on, when he talked to me, people have been offering me jobs, other schools, and, OC opportunity, small head coach opportunity, other receiver positions. And Coach Sark actually, when he said, I'm going to come meet you, or I'm going to come do this, or you can do that, like, he did everything. You want people's actions and words to match up, especially when you're talking about moving people across the country and making a drastic decision. Obviously, I'm from Pittsburgh, that's a drastic decision. I just bought a ranch, so I'm like, this has to be the right thing, and he was like, he talked me through other choices. He was like, okay, if that choice is good for you, think about it, it was never rushed or do this or I hate you, it was never any of that. And so I had a lot of respect for him, and ultimately we came to terms. And, Texas, ultimately, I just feel like there's no program in the country that I feel is like Texas. If that's the biggest football state, when you look at it, states, you can't hide when you're at Texas. If you do well at Texas, the whole world will know. It's not,
no doubt.
It's not one of those places
and if you don't do well, they'll all know too, right?
Exactly. So it's not one of those places where you can hide from the challenge, or if the success comes, you can't hide from that either. You've been at programs. We've both been at programs where you could freaking go 11-1 and set all these records and everything, and people be like, so, and, if that happens at Texas, the whole entire world knows, it's a little bit different. So, it's been a blessing being, at Texas.
That's sick, man. I'm happy for you, man. It's a cool place to be. And now, as everyone says, Texas football is back. It's a good time to be there, man. What, you mentioned briefly just now you've been part of OC interviews, and I think you've even been part of some head coaching interviews now, or at least one or two. What are those, intense interviews like, for, again, something else the fans, I think, are always curious to hear, like, what's a head coach interview or an OC interview like? Like, what is it an intense all day process?
When I interviewed for, like, when I got the OC position for Coach London for 3 years, I was with him 2 years at Howard, 1 year at William and Mary. His process was very simple because he had saw me coach as a high school head coach and run an offense. And he was like, send me your information. He sent me like 10 questions, answer these questions. And I detailed out the questions. Like, each question I answered with like a page response, how it would be done, because he's very, analytical in his approach, very like an engineer mindset. You have to really break it down for him step by step. So that's what I did in that process. Another process where I was asked to be an OC was just to sit down, like, boom. Another process that I was asked to be an OC was, you need to meet in front of the staff and explain your offense to them. So I think everybody has a different strategy for it. The head coaching positions for me, they were high academic institutions. And so that thought process was, I had to really sell my academic, plan. Really wasn't about football much. It was more about what my academic plan would be. But I always say the hardest job that I ever interviewed for, when I became a high school head coach in Pennsylvania, I mean, that was 15 people in a room,
you got
3
parents.
different interviews, state representative in there. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I thought I was just interviewing for a high school job, like that kind of prepared me. I'm like, no interview's been as hard as that one, The NFL Combine, those are interviews where you're like sitting in the room, 32 doctors pulling on your leg, scouts telling you this is your weakness, like there's been, all those different experiences add up and give you some wisdom to when you go into interviews.
Yeah, for sure. My next question was, I was going to bring up the high school head coaching job, man, in Waynesboro, PA. So when I was at Cedar Cliff, man, in Central PA, we used to play Waynesboro a little bit. So I think I played them once in my career. That was way before you got there, I think. But what was that experience? I'm sure you learned a lot during your time as a high school head coach. And I've heard that from a few coaches. I've said, like, coaches that are now head coaches or OCs that often say, like, their time in high school really teaches you ball, because you gotta learn how to make your scheme work when your players aren't very good. So you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, the legend, I always talk about the legend, Coach Wechter,
Yeah, Coach Weck.
Yeah, Coach Weck, he goes, man, he gave me a hug the first time he met me. He's like, man, if you can coach at Waynesboro, you're a big-time coach. A lot of people –
you can coach anywhere.
Unless you're from Pennsylvania, you really don't get the whole, like, going into Waynesboro and, like, turning that around and went, that was a hard job, from the standpoint. I remember just, like, my first day on the job. They introduced me to the team, and one of the players was like, why would you come here? We suck. We're the worst team in Pennsylvania. And they really were ranked last in the state. Yeah. Like, they were the last ranked team. So it was like, man, this is going to be a tough job. Like, changing the mindset of, like, the people in the community. Like, I remember, like, kids would play football up until 9th grade, and then they would just quit playing. Like, they would play Little League.
Yeah. And
then they would just quit playing because they were like, the high school team just sucks so bad. Like – that type of thing, and like getting them to like believe in just what I was telling them, and us turning it around. And we won the conference championship like the first year. And it's so crazy now. Like, I was talking about a football story today from a kid. Like, we switched the kids' mindset so much. Like, we had kids, they were playing rough and aggressive. You know how it is. Football is a violent game. There's only one way you can play it. And so one of the kids, Forrest Ryan, he's now with the Indianapolis Colts. A guy that I coached with at Howard, Cato June, that played for the Colts, is now coaching him. He's his linebacker coach.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, from
That's
Waynesboro. Cool. If you can make it from Waynesboro, PA, you can do anything. I mean, I remember trying to get scouts to come out there, like getting college coaches to come out there. Like, hold on, there's no airport. I mean, like, where do you want us to come to? It's like 2-hour drive just from, like, you got to go to Baltimore or Hagerstown, Maryland. Like, it's the closest big city, and that's like 2 hours, so just trying to get guys out there to come see it, and I think that was the biggest blessing for me, because that gave me confidence. Like, I know if I can coach there, I can pretty much go anywhere and be a good ball coach.
You must have been, what were you, like 20 mid-20s then? You must have been young.
Yeah, I was 25 when I got that job.
Dang, man. So that's
26, yeah.
Being a head coach, even at Waynesboro, still is impressive at 25, man. But no, it's cool to see how fast you've risen up since then. Though you mentioned him earlier, Xavier Worthy, man. That must, again, having another stud in your room. You had one last year, now you got another one this year. What's it been like being there? Being at Texas with him for a few months.
I think before, when I was coaching receivers, because I've only coached receivers this will be my 3rd year now in college coaching receivers. I've always, quarterbacks and all that stuff. So, now I don't really have to say what I did as a player or who coached me. It's kind of like I can show the model of what this kid did under me, coaching them and teaching them, like, these drills, why they're important, why you need to do these certain things. And it just kind of takes off. You know what I mean? So now the guys, when I tell them something, it's like they're already trying to be perfect at it, because they've seen somebody else use that and have a lot of success with it. And then Xavier, he's just a great kid. Like, I've known him and his mom for a long time before, this whole Texas situation. I've known them for years in the past. And, Xavier's always been a kid that's trying to be the best and prove himself. He's from a small town, being from Fresno, California, and he wants to do it at the highest level. And ultimately, I mean, he had 12, 13 touchdowns as a freshman.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah, he had a real freshman. Like, that's a real season. A lot of guys don't get 12, 13 touchdowns in their senior year. So I mean, he's really on track to do some special things, and he's definitely putting the work in.
That's been sweet, man. Yeah, that 12 and like a 5 in a freshman year, what is impressive. To get 12 is special, man. It's definitely special. What's your philosophy in your receiver room, or any room you coach? I heard you talk about it a little bit on the Twitter space I was mentioning, but just wanted to hear you dive into it some more. Everyone's kind of got their their core values or philosophy or whatever it is.
Yeah, the biggest thing we just talked about how you play without the ball determines how much you love your teammates, and that's kind of been since my high school basketball. I played point guard, and all those plays, taking a charge, making the extra pass, doing all those things on the court. When I became a captain in football, when I was a junior college player, I just said, like, everybody has to make those plays, like, for us to be successful. Like, you got to run a guy off, you got to block, you got to, and those add up. When you look at that and when you're focused on just trying to win the game, you look at the end of the season and you go like, damn, man, I had a great season. Yeah. And, once I changed that perspective in my mind, I started having winning seasons and great seasons as a player. So any room I go into with players, that's the biggest thing, and at the end of the year, we look and break records and have all these wins and stuff. And it's like, that's the mindset. Like, just do whatever it takes to win, like special teams, anything at receiver that's asked for you to be done. Like, and I always say everybody will eat. Like, if you just do all the things it takes to win, you'll look up at the end of the year and you'll have a great season. Like, everybody will be happy with the season that they had, from that standpoint. If you just, how you play without the ball determines how much you love your teammates. Because everybody, when the ball's coming to you or you have the ball, you're going to make a play or you're not, and you'll get replaced. But majority of the time when you're getting the ball or you have the ball, if you're at the college level, you're going to make a play. But for the plays to truly work, like Jordan Addison sometimes had to clear out, take two, and then somebody else was wide open. Mm-hmm. And then they made a big play. Or, you know what I mean? Like, how it is. Yeah, if you're the tight end, right? And, somebody's got to clear out and you come underneath on a flood concept. A post takes two, you come out on the flood, wide ass open, and now you're scoring a touchdown. Yeah. But if that dude jogged the route.
No doubt. Yeah. It ain't there. And it's funny because that's the thing that fans just don't realize, like, how much goes into having a real play, like a play be successful. It's crazy. And as you said, man, like I learned during my career too, like the when you do those little things, right? Like what you just said, how you play without the ball, like everything else kind of starts taking care of itself a little bit.
Yeah. So
yeah, man. The other thing we have in common, I wanted to talk about your time at ASU, man. I was at ASU, as you know, for 2 years, and you were at ASU. Were you a GA at ASU or a quality control or analyst?
Yeah, quality control. Yeah,
quality control. How was that experience like? That was with Ty Graham.
Yeah. So for me, that was a unique experience because half of those guys on the staff were my college coaches. So
yeah,
that was unique from the standpoint. I just went from being a high school head coach, winning like Pennsylvania Coach of the Year, like man, like having 100 kids on my team, being in charge of that, like to get coffee, do this report, break
doing
down
the drawings.
You know what I mean? You know how it is, just like insignificant. You're like, damn, all I do is just shut up and do this, But one of the beautiful things was that's kind of, and I still talk to these guys to this day. Like I had guys that they were like, even though you're not, even though I wasn't a position coach or whatever, I made a huge impact from the standpoint of like, spending time with guys like Kalen Ballage and Manny Wilkins and Jalen Harvey, all those guys that were there. I spent a lot of time with them in the meeting rooms, one-on-one, and just being somebody that they could go to for life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not just the football element of it. Because obviously if you're at the D1 level and you have top tier coaches, you're going to get the football part of it. I think the guys that can still have those personal relationships and let guys put their hair down, I thought that was one of the things that Whip did really well that I learned from him. Like every time Kenny made a mistake, he didn't just rip him apart and, throw him to the side. He, gave him a minute, came to him. What'd you see? And he could go in there and just be himself and relax.
Yeah.
And so, you have to give guys that freedom, that respect. I think the guys that miss the mark in college sports are the guys that just try to make them like little kids. These are, you're trying to prepare them to be men, grown men. You got to give them some life lessons, some love. And I think that's the thing that I learned at ASU the most was not only did I learn a lot of football, you learn a ton of football when you're a GA or quality control, but just still being authentic to those relationships and helping kids still fulfill their dreams and, treating them as young men and not, just get over there to the side type.
No doubt, man. I'm sure though that Whip ripped Kenny Pickett a couple times, man.
he ripped everybody. I mean, nobody's Nobody was safe.
No one's safe. No.
Nobody was safe.
I did a podcast with Kenny a few months ago, and we exchanged some the worst things that Coach Whipple said to each of us, and it was on camera. It was funny.
Yeah.
But now Coach Whip's the man, like we talked about. Man, what are your I want to pick your brain on just like the changing dynamic of college football. And I know you probably get asked this a lot, but college football has changed so much, even from the time that I was a coach. I mean, it's just like a totally different sport now. I mean, not a different sport, but different game. You got NIL, the transfer portal, conference realignment. Like, what are your thoughts on all that stuff going on? I know you just got to coach ball and recruit and everything takes care of itself. But like NIL has to be such a big part of recruiting nowadays. And just must have changed so much in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think I think relationships more than ever mean a lot because, like when the almighty dollar comes into play, if you don't have a relationship, that will trump everything else. I mean, it's not like, oh, this school has a nicer weight room or locker room anymore. Like all those like facility upgrades that people used to think were like, oh, this is the determining factor, or
it don't matter if there's the
teams thought, oh, we got better uniforms, or all that stuff is like out the window. It really is truly a relationship business now to get players and to keep players when you bring in the fact that they can actually make, and for me personally, I believe in, like, I think the players should get something. I don't like the way that they get paid out, as far as like, I feel like you should put it in trust for them because, as we both know, that transition year when football's over is the hardest year of your life. So I think they have to have some more financial literacy from that standpoint of helping guys really save for when football's over, because that's really the hardest years of your life. But, with college football changing when change occurs, I feel like it's going to give more. It just puts more of a spotlight on it, which grows the game, right? So, ultimately the rich get richer, right? The SEC, the bigger programs, everybody's going to, flock to those more. But I think it's going to give a chance for more lower level football and more guys to get into the game, coaches, players, more opportunities, to get into the game. So I think it'll help the game after some point, but it's that initial shock when everything first happens, that initial shock of everything. But I think ultimately what it all is doing is bringing more exposure to the game. More exposure gives more revenue, more opportunities for people to get into the game. We all of us football guys, we want to keep the game rolling. We want, we want people to, why don't they love it like we do? Why don't, and now we're just seeing an influx of people like really trying to jump in and surge into football, but the game is still the game. When you break it down, it's still a 100-yard field, 11 players on each side. I think as long as you stay true to that part on the field, you'll be fine. I think the off the field stuff, you have to really love the game to get through all the stuff that's occurs.
Yeah, no doubt. What do you think about the transfer portal? Do you think it's got to, you think there's got to be some kind of window? I know they're talking about doing the windows of when you can transfer, when you can't transfer, because it's tough for it, being a coach too. Like I know from when I was there, it's tough from a roster management standpoint. But again, it comes down to relationships, like you said. Hopefully, you ain't losing a bunch of your guys, but it's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I think they have to. They have to at least lay a foundation. You add a new rule or you put something in place, but there's no really foundation on it. So everybody's like, if one person is in the wrong, it's like, okay, well, that person just did something wrong. But if everybody's like, I have no clue, I don't know what it is, if you sit there, you look at it every media day, if you watch all these media days, every head coach is up there like, there needs to be something. We don't really know how it's rolling, what to do. Then that lets you know that there needs to be some type of foundation in place. I'm, being a junior college transfer, I didn't really transfer in college. I don't really know how that works, but for these kids transferring, I mean, I don't really know what you can tell a kid, like even from an NFL perspective, if you look at it at that level, like Mike Tomlin says, you don't want to have a whole bunch of hostages on your team. If you're coaching
right.
and you got your tight end room and they're all like, we hate it here, this place sucks, and they're just miserable and energy vampires, you'd rather go get
someone
4
else,
players who love to be there than to have a room full of 4 guys who like, I hate it here, it sucks. I'm trying to leave every day. So from a coaching standpoint, it's like that double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, you don't want guys to leave, but you also don't want guys in there just killing your program that don't like it there, where you could go get some players that actually want that opportunity too. So, it's both ways.
It's a balance, right? It's a balance, just like anything else. What's the long-term goal for you as a coach? I mean, you've talked before about wanting to be a head coach, but what do you think life looks like for you in 5-10 years?
The biggest thing, like it's hard to look for me for 5 to 10 years, but
I know it's so long, right? That's a long way away.
Yeah, I live in the one great year can change your life motto. Just give everything you got to each year. I think we all have an end game of what we see and want, but ultimately, I always feel like if I don't do good this year or do good right now, none of that stuff really matters. So I just got to put it in this year. We got to have a great year at Texas and, do the things that we need to do to be successful in the field. And then hopefully when I look up at the end of my career, I was able to impact a lot of people. I was able to be a head coach and help other guys become head coaches and, help players take care of their families and get great educations and all that type of stuff. So that's the goal.
No doubt, man. Well, I'm rooting for you, bro. I appreciate you taking this time right before camp. When you start camp? A couple of days?
Next week. We'll get to it.
Right. Cool, man. Cool. Well, I appreciate the time, man, and I'm excited to follow your career, and we'll start doing this every year or so. Get an update on your career on the podcast. All right.
No doubt, my man. Welcome. Appreciate
you, brother. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Brennan Marion. He's a beast. Going to be a head coach soon. Mark my words on it. So you'll remember this interview when you see him as the head coach of a big time program here pretty soon. We'll have some more guests lined up for you coming soon. Shout out Underdog Fantasy. Go to underdogfantasy.com, download the app, use my code AdamB for a deposit match. And appreciate them for sponsoring the episode. Appreciate Brennan for coming on. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter, Instagram at AdamBreneman81, and let me know what guests you want to see, what you want to see next on the podcast. Talk to you guys next time.